Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Now this week's video, as you can probably tell by all the parts here on my desk, is going to be another PC build video. I'm actually building this computer for somebody else who is using a bit of an older computer and gave me a $300 budget to build them a new one, and that's basically what I'm going to be doing here. Let's just get started with it here. I'm going to be going through all of these parts one by one, which should not take that long. So as you guys can probably see, with the CPU here, is this what we're going to be starting with first. But as you guys can probably see, I went with and all the parts don't fall over. I went with an Intel Pentium. Alright, it's just going to fall over, that's fine. I went with an Intel Pentium G4600 for this build, which is a pretty decent processor. Let me just move the camera down here so you can see just a little bit better. It's a pretty decent processor. I've actually seen a lot of people make some pretty mid-range gaming computers, and they use this very same processor right here as the CPU, and they kind of pair it with like a either like a GTX 1050 Ti or maybe even a 1060, which offers pretty decent gaming performance. So this computer is not going to be a high-end gaming machine at all. This computer is really only going to be used for like basic office tasks, which is going to entail like a little bit of web browsing, using Microsoft Office, and basically checking email. I think these are really going to be the only three major things that this person is going to be doing with this computer. So because of that reason, I just decided to go with this basic Intel Pentium processor here. A lot of you guys might be wondering why I didn't choose an AMD Ryzen processor for this build, and to be honest, I really wanted to build an AMD Ryzen build, as I have not done that yet because my main computer is using a Core i7 processor. So I kind of wanted to make this build a Ryzen based build, but unfortunately, because of the fact that you have to have a dedicated GPU with the Ryzen processor, because there's no integrated graphics with any other Ryzen processors, I kind of just basically had to go with Intel because I did not want to buy like a very low-end GPU and spend probably a little bit more money. And honestly, like that old GPU that I would end up getting would probably be worse than the integrated graphics on this processor. So just to save a little bit of money, because I think that the cheapest Ryzen 3 is like $110, whereas this is like $80. And actually this one right here is the G4600, as I may have mentioned, which is actually 100 megahertz faster than the G4560, which is honestly, out of the two of these Pentium processors, I think the G4560 is a little bit more popular, but this was like 10 cents more and you get an extra 100 megahertz clock boost, which is going to be pretty nice, especially because you cannot overclock this processor, unfortunately. So yeah, that's basically the Intel Pentium. This is a dual-core processor, but because of Intel's hyper-threading, it does allow it to function in some respects as a quad-core CPU. So this is going to be plenty of CPU power for this computer build. Next up, we're going to just go with the RAM here. As you can see, I went with a 4GB kit from Crucial right here. I actually was originally going to go with a 4GB kit from Corsair in their Corsair Vengeance line of memory. This was like, I think, $10 or $15 cheaper, and it basically, I think it's the same clock speed. This is a 2133 megahertz DDR4. So, and I think that the Corsair memory was basically like, pretty similar specs, and it was like $10 or $15 more. So again, to save a little bit of money, I decided to go with this Crucial kit. Honestly, 4 gigs of RAM is going to be plenty of RAM for this computer, at least nowadays, because again, this computer is really only going to be doing basic tasks. So yeah, a 4 gig kit from Crucial right here. I'm just going to set that over here. For the motherboard, I went with a pretty basic B250 motherboard from Intel, or not from Intel, from ASRock. The B250 chipset is from Intel, but this is an ASRock B250M-HDV motherboard. The only reason I really got this is because of the M2 slot. On the back here, as you can kind of see, where is it? Right here, Ultra M2. It can go to a maximum of 32 gigs per second. Because I did go with a M2 SSD from ADAT. It's 128 gigabytes. This was actually $10 or $15 less than ADATA's SATA SSD. So I pretty much went with this to save, having to run 2 extra cables throughout the computer case. So it's an M2 SSD, although it kind of functions like a SATA SSD because the fastest speed, as you may be able to see there, is SATA 6 gigabytes per second, or SATA, depending on how you pronounce it. So yeah, a SATA SSD right here, or an SATA M2 SSD, which is going to go in the M2 slot on this motherboard. Honestly, the person I'm building this computer for isn't really going to be using all of the features that this motherboard offers. I mean, they're not really going to be using triple monitors or 4K. I honestly don't even think they have a full HD monitor hooked up to their computer right now. So yeah, pretty basic motherboard, but it's honestly going to get the job done just fine. And as I did mention, I went with this 128 gig ADATA M2 SSD. Also over here, you can see I went with a DVD/CD combo drive right here because despite what people may think, DVDs and CDs aren't dead, at least yet. Well, they aren't really that commonly used. This person does deal, with a lot of files that are on DVDs and CDs, so I just, basically got this for them so that they can still have that feature in their computer. And as you can see over there, probably I'll just pan the camera up for this one. I went with a ARC 450 watt power supply from Rosewell, and the funny story about this is I did order this from Amazon. I think I ordered this power supply and the case back here, which I'll get into in a minute here. I ordered those 2 parts from Amazon, and for whatever reason, let me just grab the box here. Because I think it has to do with the reason that this didn't come directly from Amazon. It came through their FBA program, which is fulfillment by Amazon. So this actually came directly from Rosewell, and the funny thing is they shipped it in a Newegg box, as you can see here. I don't know why that is. I guess it was like the only box that they had laying around, but yeah, this was bought on Amazon. That came in a Newegg box. I actually went with a 550 watt modular power supply in this same line from Rosewell in my older computer build, not the one that I'm using now, but in the one I built in, I believe, 2015. And I actually still have that power supply, and it actually still works, which is pretty nice. This is also an 80+ bronze power supply with a 3-year warranty, so it was pretty much a no-brainer. And for the case here is another Rosewell product. As you can see, this is the FBM-05, and the main reason why I went with this case is because it has 2 5¼ inch bays on the front, as you can probably see in this image here. So that's going to allow the DVD drive to obviously go in there. It's also got, I think, 1 or 2 USB 3 ports on the front, which is pretty nice. And also a lot of the reviews on Amazon said that it had good ventilation, which is always good in a PC case. So that's pretty much all the parts that I got. We're about 12 minutes in this video, so I'm going to be moving on to actually building this thing. So yeah, I'm just going to just get started with that, and I'll be right back once I reset up the camera. Alright guys, well here is the full time-lapsed PC build process for the $300 budget Pentium build. This was really a pretty straightforward build to put together. It wasn't really anything super difficult. I did actually opt to use the stock Intel heatsink and the stock thermal paste as well, because as I mentioned before, this is really only going to be used as an office computer doing basic computing tasks, so it's not really going to need anything super high-end to keep the processor cool. While I've been using this thing, I've not really noticed any major temperature problems. So this I mean, despite what people say about the stock Intel cooler, it works perfectly fine in situations like this. I also did not really mention this in the parts overview clip, but I am planning on using the M2 SSD. I'm going to actually be cloning the old hard drive, because this person does have an older traditional style hard drive in their computer now with a full Windows 10 license on it. So I'm basically going to be cloning that and all of their data over to this 128 gigabyte ADATA M2 SSD that I showcased in the previous clip. So that's going to save about $100 because I don't have to buy a full Windows license because I already have one. And I mean, yeah, that is pretty much all there is to say. Like I said, it was a pretty straightforward build, nothing super complicated, and yeah, that is pretty much it. Alright, so I had to switch over to free cam mode here, but you can see that this is the final product. The build is finished. You can see I still have a lot of cable management to do, but I'm just going to see if the thing works before that I really do any of that. I got this Insignia TV here that I'm going to be using as a monitor. Just turn it on here. We're going to reach around behind the computer to turn on the power supply. Alright, no flames yet, that's pretty good. And we're going to press the power button. And there we go. The build is on. That was the DVD drive right there. I don't know, I guess this thing isn't switched over to VGA. Let me check this. There we go. Alright, we're on VGA. We see we have the BIOS. There's not any OS installed, so it's not going to do anything. I'm going to press delete to enter setup. And here we go. We are in the wonderful ASRock Easy Mode BIOS that has mouse support, which is pretty awesome. And you can see we've got the CPU right there, an Intel Pentium G4600 at 3.6 gigahertz. We've got 4 gigs of RAM. And then I wonder, where is it going to show? Okay, it shows the M2, the A data. It's a 128 gig drive, but it doesn't really say 128. So, and then it also shows the DVD-ROM, or DVD RAM plugged into the SATA 3 port. So that is pretty nice. Yeah, so I think that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this build. I'm going to do a lot of cable management, as I said, but that's really going to be off camera because it's not really that interesting. But yeah, this is honestly a really nice looking BIOS, how they've got this all, kind of laid out. As this is a pretty inexpensive motherboard, so I mean, I think all of them are kind of coming with these like BIOSes where you can use the mouse to navigate them, which is pretty nice. But yeah, you can see we are getting pretty decent temperatures there. We've got 43 degrees Celsius on the CPU and 29 degrees Celsius on the motherboard. I did only use the Intel stock cooler, as some of you guys may not like. And if you noticed in the build time lapse, you can see that I just used the pre-applied thermal paste on the stock cooler. But honestly, as I said, this build isn't really going to be used for much that is that intensive. It's really only going to be used for basic computing tasks. So this is pretty much going to be a pretty solid build. But as I said, that's probably going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely sure to give this video a thumbs up and give me a comment down below. Tell me what you think of this build. As always, guys, I just want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.